And in this series 5, I'll be discussing on the chapter utility. We have already discussed on the demand. If we demand anything, we need a satisfaction also from the things which we consume. Demand means consuming something, and when we consume anything, we get a satisfaction. So that satisfaction is the utility. Utility is a very subjective term, though many economists have given an objective status also the utility. As we'll go through the slides, we'll come to know that how utility has been measured, and has been measured in numeric terms also and in subjective factor terms also. Now the question arises, what is utility? We say about demand, much is talked about demand. So what do we get after we demand? Because we consume anything, any product, goods or services, what do we get? We get satisfaction. And that is the utility of that very commodity, of that very particular goods and service. So utility refers to one satisfying power of a commodity. And utility differs from person to person, place to place, and time to time. If I talk about the from person to person, yes, my utility or my satisfaction is different from my friend's satisfaction. Maybe when I consume any product, goods, or services, my satisfaction may be higher rather than my friend. And place to place also matters, and time to time. The utility of raincoat is much more in rainy season rather than in summer times. In the same way, the utility which we derive in Patna, maybe in the metros, Mumbai or any other metros will be different. So utility is not a very distinct word which is applicable in every word or every situation. It is different from situation to situation, from person to person, and place to place. Utility is the ability of a goods to satisfy a want. In short, when a commodity is capable of satisfying human wants, we can conclude that the commodity has utility. So everyone has got its own utility. Every person, every individual has a certain utility. One thing may be utility for me, that thing might not be utility for others. Of non-vegetarian people will be having utility for chicken, muttons and all. But for the vegetarian people, it hasn't got any utility. So utility is a subjective term. Utility has been taken into two concepts, cardinal utility and ordinal utility. The cardinal utility approach or the traditional approach, they used to think that utility can be measured. It can be just measured like we measure rupiah, paisa in money terms. But the ordinal approach or the modern approach told that not. Utility is a psychological feeling. It cannot be measured. It is a subjective factor. So coming back to the cardinal approach, that means they are giving numeric values to the amount of satisfaction. Like if I consume a ice cream cup, then I'll be having 10 utils. This is for an example. That means they are assigning numeric values that I am getting a satisfaction of 10 when I consume a ice cream cup. Well, the ordinal approach used to say that no, we cannot give numeric terms that I'm getting 10 utils. We can only say that I felt very good when I consumed the cup of ice cream. And this is practical also. We never measure in utils when we consume anything. Do we? No, we don't measure. Still, the cardinal utility approach had given a very distinct phenomena which they observed through assigning numeric values to the utility, which will be coming to know. So, measurement of utility was a concept which was given by the classical economists, and they measured utility in terms of utils. Just we measure money in terms of rupees, they were measuring utility in an imaginary units called utils. And then only they gave the numeric value of 10, 8, 7, 6 or 5. This was simple. Utils was simple imaginary and psychological units, which were used to measure satisfaction obtained from consumption of a certain quantity of a commodity. And utils cannot be taken as a standard unit of measurement as it varied from individual to individual. So measurement of utility in monetary terms was a major drawback, I should say, for the classical economists. And on this very tenet, they were attacked by the modern economists. Still, as I told you, this assigning of monetary value gave us a result which has been still accepted also and which has been followed till date. They told that we are having a law of diminishing marginal utility. That means that as we consume more and more of a commodity, the satisfaction we get from consuming the successive units goes on diminishing. And this has been accepted as a major fact in today's economics also, that as we consume more and more of a commodity, the satisfaction level goes down. We experience also, we experience in our day-to-day life. Suppose if I'm hungry in the morning and I'm having 3 chapatis in my breakfast. So the first chapati will give me maximum satisfaction. If we suppose, I'm just saying it suppose, imagine if we are measuring in numeric terms, then I'll assign 20 values to my first chapati, that I'm getting 20 utils to my first chapati. Now my hunger has been satisfied with the first chapati. After that, still I am hungry. So when I consume the second chapati, I will get a utils lower than the first chapati, because in the first chapati, I was the most hungry person. I was so hungry that gave me, the first chapati gave me the maximum satisfaction. So now the second chapati will give me less satisfaction than as compared to the first chapati. So 18 utils. Now if I consume the third chapati, with these 2 chapatis, my hunger has been satisfied to a certain limit. Now if I consume the third chapati, then my hunger has been reduced and I am getting only 10 utils. So as we see a graph of this, 20, 18 and 10. So the satisfaction level is going down. So this postulate of the classical economists, that law of diminishing marginal utility, as we consume more and more of a good, the utility we derive from a successive units goes on diminishing. This law is based on certain assumptions. When we talk about the assumptions, these assumptions are very necessary for the law to be valid. We'll see the assumptions. The first assumption is various units of goods are homogeneous. That means whatever we are consuming is of the same size, same shape, same texture, same material. If I'm consuming chapati, it should be of same size. That doesn't mean once the first chapati is very big, the second chapati is very small, or the size, shape, all the things should be equal. Second is, there is no time gap between consumption. That means the consumption should be continuous. The whole 3 chapatis should be at my breakfast time. We should never measure the satisfaction of first chapati of breakfast, first chapati of dinner, and first chapati of lunch. In that case, our Lord, that the satisfaction is going down with the successive units consumption will be not valid, because and all the 3 times I'm equally hungry, so I will get the same satisfaction. Maybe it's a little bit higher also. The thing to be pointed out for this assumption is that there should be continuous consumption. If I'm consuming 3 chapatis in my breakfast, it should be continuous, first, second, third in the breakfast only. If measuring of the dinner time, then first, second, and third chapati of the dinner time. Third is consumer is rational. This is a valid assumption in every economic theories, that the behavior of rational consumer is only noted down. We cannot treat irrational consumer for economic theory to be justified. The taste, preference, and fashion remains unchanged. Just giving one example of taste, that if I'm consuming chapati, I should consume only chapati. In that, I don't have the allowance to bring burger or pizza in that. That should be remain consistent, that I'm having a taste of only chapatis. No burger, no pizza, not stuffed paratha, no Mughlai parathas, nothing. Then the consumer possesses perfect knowledge of the price in the market. There should not be any price change. It assumes law of marginal diminishing utility, already discussed. And utilities of different commodities are independent of each other. This is also an assumption that is very valid for this theorem, that because utilities of different commodities are independent of each other. Suppose if I am consuming chapati, maybe I am not eating chapati without anything. I may have chutney, I may have butter, I may have jam or any vegetable. But the point to be noted in this theorem is that we are measuring utility of only the chapati, not the other products which we are consuming simultaneously with it. So these are the basic assumptions to be followed by the law. Now we come to total and marginal utility. These two concepts are important for measuring utility, for knowing the behavior of utility. So what is total utility and what is marginal utility? Total utility means the total satisfaction attained by the consumer from all the units of a commodity taken together in the consumption of a certain thing at a time. That means if I am consuming 3 chapatis in my breakfast, I have to measure the utility or the satisfaction which I derive from all the 3 chapatis. The first chapati has given 20 utils, the second chapati has given 18, and the third 10. So all the 3 utility will be added up and summed up, and that will become my total utility. Now, marginal utility is the additional utility obtained from an additional unit of any commodity consumed or acquired. That means when we consume additional commodity, the additional satisfaction which we derive from it is called the marginal utility. If see the tabular representation of total utility and marginal utility, this is an example of glass of water. Suppose if we are very thirsty, the first glass of water gives us immense satisfaction. And you can see also that in this schedule, it is 20 and 20. The marginal utility is also 20 because previous to that first glass of water, there has been no water consumed. So the concept of additional glass here is the first glass. The second glass, the third glass, and the fourth glass, you can see as we consume the second glass of water, our thirst has been satisfied to a certain extent by the first glass of water. The second glass of water is giving less utility because thirst has been satisfied. Now we consume the third glass of water, it is giving additional, the additional satisfaction is only 8 utils because slowly our thirst is being reduced. The fourth glass will give 2 utils, additional utils. And the fifth glass, our thirst has been satisfied. And in the sixth glass, over of anything is not good for health. It will negatively affect our health if we consume more of a water. We can vomit also, we can feel sick also. So this is the approach of total utility and marginal utility. Now, how total utility and marginal utility is related to each other? You can see in this schedule that in the first, we are getting a total utility of 8. Now, the marginal utility is the additional utility. That means 8 minus 0 is equal to 8. In the second case, it is 14 total utility. If we minus the previous total utility, we can get the marginal utility 14 minus 8, 6. Same with the third unit, we are getting 18 total utility. So 18 minus the previous total utility, 18 minus 14, 4. So this is the way how can we to know the marginal utility if we know the total utility. And vice versa, if we know the marginal utility, we can calculate the total utility by adding up the previous marginal utility. Like you can see that 8 plus 6 is equal to 14, 6 plus 4 is equal to 10. Then this way you will start cumulative. When you add up cumulative, you will get the total utility. 8 plus 6 is equal to 14, 14 plus 4 is equal to 18, and then 18 plus 2 is equal to 20. So this is the way we are deriving the total utility and marginal utility. Graphically, if we see, if we plot it in the graph, we'll see that total utility and marginal utility is having a different behavior. The marginal utility goes on diminishing. That means as we consume more and more of a commodity, the utility we derive from the additional utility the additional satisfaction which we derive from additional commodity consumption goes on diminishing, and this you can see that there is a negative slope or a negative relationship between the marginal utility and the units of orange here. So you can see that after the point 6, this is the point of where the marginal utility becomes 0, and after this, if we consume more of orange, this will give a negative utility or disutility. Graphically linking the total utility and marginal utility, you can see in this graph that till the marginal utility is increasing, the total utility is also increasing at an increasing rate. After the marginal utility starts declining, the total utility increases at a diminishing rate, and once the marginal utility is 0, the total utility corresponding to it is maximum, and after the marginal utility becomes negative, the total utility goes on diminishing. So this is the relationship between marginal utility and total utility. In the next schedule, you will be able to link up that relationship, that when total utility increases at a diminishing rate, marginal utility diminishes. When total utility is maximum, marginal utility becomes 0. And when total utility decreases, marginal utility becomes negative. You can see in this graphical representation also that as the total utility is rising, marginal utility is greater than 0. When total utility is maximum, marginal utility is equal to 0. And when total utility is falling, then marginal utility is less than 0. You can see this relationship in this graphical representation. So students, we have come to know about the concept of total utility and marginal utility in this series. And in the next series, we'll be discussing on how this total utility and marginal utility has been measured, and when this total utility and marginal utility will behave in two laws. It is law of equimarginal utility in the modern statement and in the traditional statement. We'll come to know the behavior of utility when we are measuring it in a cardinal terms. So please join me in my next series. Till then, thank you.